Tonight, we're looking north. Something big is happening across the border, and it could send shockwaves through the American economy. Canada, our closest ally and one of our biggest trading partners, is making a bold and dramatic move. For decades, the U.S.-Canada relationship has been the bedrock of North American commerce, but that foundation is now shaking. Canada has decided to fundamentally redraw its trade map. They are no longer putting most of their eggs in the American basket. Canada is actively signing comprehensive trade agreements with 11 new partners, a bloc of nations spanning from Europe to the Pacific. So, who is on the front lines of this economic battle? We're talking about the titans of American industry, brands that are woven into the fabric of our daily lives. First up is Ford Motor Company. For over a century, Ford trucks and cars have been a dominant presence on Canadian roads. They operate massive assembly plants in Ontario, making them a major employer and a symbol of the integrated auto industry. Next, consider Apple Inc., the iPhone in your pocket, the MacBook on your desk. These are symbols of American innovation, and they are everywhere in Canada. Then there's Coca-Cola. You can't get more American than that. Finally, let's look at a diverse group of other major players: Caterpillar Inc., Tyson Foods, General Electric, and Walmart. For a company like Ford, the danger is twofold. Suddenly, a Volkswagen made in Germany or a Toyota made in Japan could land in a Toronto showroom at a lower price than a comparable Ford. Second, the complex rules of origin in these new agreements might penalize cars with too much U.S. content. For Apple, the threat is more subtle but just as real. A trade deal with a tech powerhouse like South Korea, home to Samsung, could be a game-changer. If competing brands like Samsung can lower their Canadian prices due to these trade benefits, Apple will be forced into a difficult choice. The story for Coca-Cola and Tyson Foods is about shelf space and consumer choice. Imagine you're a Canadian grocery chain manager. You can now import sparkling beverages from Italy or artisanal juices from France with zero tariffs. Similarly, a deal with Brazil could flood the Canadian market with lower-cost beef or poultry. From Canada's perspective, this strategic shift is not about punishing the United States, it's about securing its own future. For too long, the Canadian economy has been hitched to the fortunes of its southern neighbor. This move to partner with 11 new nations is a calculated act of self-preservation and ambition. A Canadian shopper can now walk into a store and find French cheese, German cars, and Japanese electronics, all competing on a level playing field. In recent years, we've seen how quickly political winds can shift, leading to sudden tariffs on steel, aluminum, or softwood lumber. If the door to the U.S. market becomes partially blocked by a tariff, other doors around the world remain wide open. The tremors from Canada's decision will not be contained at the border. Canada is, for many sectors, our #1 customer. Every year, billions of dollars worth of American-made cars, machinery, food, and consumer products flow north. Now, every single one faces new, aggressive competition. The factory worker in Ohio, whose job depends on making parts for Ford's Canadian assembly lines, is at risk. The farmer in Iowa who grows corn and soybeans destined for the Canadian market is at risk. The software developer in California, whose company's products are sold to Canadian businesses, is at risk. The North American auto industry was built on the principle of a single, integrated market. Parts and vehicles cross the border multiple times before a car is finished. Canada's new trade deals disrupt this delicate dance. United States companies may be forced to rethink their entire supply chain. Picture a small town in Michigan whose economy is built around a factory that manufactures auto parts, specifically dashboards for Ford trucks. For years, the vast majority of their output has been shipped across the bridge to an assembly plant in Windsor, Ontario. Now, because of Canada's new trade deal with the European Union, the Windsor plant finds it can source tariff-free dashboards from Slovakia. The Michigan factory suddenly loses its biggest contract. Think of a poultry farmer in Georgia who is part of the Tyson Foods supply chain. But now, Canada has a trade agreement with Brazil. Suddenly, massive volumes of Brazilian chicken can enter Canada without tariffs. The Georgia farmer is told to scale back production. That means less income, less ability to invest in new equipment, and uncertainty over the family farm's future. A mid-sized American company makes specialized medical imaging software. They've had great success selling to Canadian hospitals, but under Canada's new trade pact with Germany, Siemens can now bundle its software with MRI machines and sell the entire package tariff-free. Their Canadian sales begin to dry up, forcing them to lay off skilled programmers and salespeople. Innovation stalls because the revenue needed to fund it has vanished. Facing this new reality, American brands cannot afford to stand still. The first and most critical step is to double down on innovation. The goal is to make the Made in America label synonymous with must-have, creating a competitive moat that new trade deals can't easily cross. Second, United States companies must get smarter with their supply chains. This might involve partnering with suppliers in Mexico, which is part of the USMCA. Companies must analyze every link in their value chain to remain the most attractive option for Canadian partners. Another crucial strategy is to deepen partnerships within Canada itself. This could mean expanding Canadian research facilities or engaging in joint ventures. Finally, American brands must not neglect the power of their brand story. Marketing campaigns should emphasize quality, safety standards, and shared values between Americans and Canadians. The message from our northern neighbor is loud and clear. The world is changing and the old rules no longer apply. For American businesses, this is an urgent wake-up call. The era of taking the vast and profitable Canadian market for granted is over. The threat to iconic brands is real, and the potential impact on American exports, industries, and jobs is significant. It's about the factory worker in the Midwest, the farmer in the South, and the tech worker on the West Coast. The ground has shifted beneath our feet, and we must regain our footing quickly. Ignoring this challenge is not a strategy, it is a recipe for economic decline. American companies must become more agile, more innovative, and more globally aware than ever before. This means investing in next-generation technology, optimizing supply chains, and building deeper local partnerships. This is a moment of truth. It's a test of our resilience, our ingenuity, and our will to compete. The stakes are immense, and the time to act is now. The future of American jobs and our economic leadership depends on it.